What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Goats of Growth. Today, my guest is Tanvir Bhangoo, ex-go-to-market leader for Toast, Freshie, and Restaurant Brands International. He's also the best-selling author of the book Pro-Business Mindset, How to Lead Amid Disruption and Chaos, which was selected by Walmart. Of all companies, can't get much better than that. By Walmart's corporate annual leadership reading, annual leadership reading. And he's about to launch his next book, which is titled Bet on People, which sounds right up my alley. If all that isn't enough, you also happen to win a national championship in college as a football player. So, Tanvir, welcome to the Goats of Growth.
Thanks, buddy. I'll here's the $5 for the nice introduction. I handed I asked you to do for me, but no, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah,
I'm equally excited to dive into today and also learn a bit more about you as well and your journey, Jay. So thanks for having me.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Did I pronounce your last name right? Is it Bangu or how do you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. So let's just start with the books for a moment. I want to go back to the first book that I bungled a little bit there that was selected by Walmart for annual leadership reading. Tell me about the uh, pro business mindset book, why you wrote it, and just more about what's in it.
Yeah. So the I think it's a great starting point because it does tie in more of my journey together.
Hmm.
So, I'm born and raised in Canada. I'm from Toronto, a small city, not small anymore, but northwest of Toronto called Brampton, and it's a big community of former Punjabis, North Indian state who migrated to Canada. So I'm the first generation there, born and raised there. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the very few kids that went on to play football. Somebody of my background, not a lot of kids ventured out to play American football, let alone leave home to go study in a different city. So I had that opportunity to do that, and that actually opened up a lot of learning and doors for me. And one of the things that I was fortunate to do was have the opportunity to play in college in Canada. So really, when I look back at you know my early life, I think that was a defining moment for me to have played football, especially when I was kind of trying to figure out what to do next. I grew really quickly. I had a growth spurt in grade seven. I was like 260 pounds, 6'3". I was always kind of stumbling over my own weight, and football was one of those things that kind of helped me build confidence, build a friendship circle with good people, kind of keep me out of trouble.
Hmm.
Long story short, end of 4 years of football in college, tried out for the combine in the Canadian Football League, didn't get drafted, went back for fifth year, and then I decided to do my MBA. I was very, I would say, kind of lucky in a way to have found the roles that I did in tech. And one of the questions people would ask me about, around like 2017, 2018, 6 to 7 years after I left, after I graduated,
Hmm.
football, is like, hey, how did you get into tech? How did you become this? I was a VP of a public company without a tech background. So that's a question I always get, man, how'd you do it? How'd you pull it off, right? And the only answer I would actually give people is like, dude, I just learned everything that I do here from the football field.
Hmm.
Everything that I'm doing is directly from what I've learned in those 5 years, plus the grassroots football that I played as a
Hmm.
kid. And when I came, so fast forward to 2020, I got married. I came to the U.S. I couldn't work. I didn't have a visa. I was waiting for a green card. So I said, why don't I take that that whole question that people have asked me, and I had a bunch of thoughts that how I was leading. I said, why don't I put that into a framework that I could share with the world on, hey, here's, if you not just play sport, if you watch sports, if you played, whether it's amateur, if you appreciate that mentality, here's how you can leverage that in business from stories from my life, personal, professional, as well as I interviewed like 50 athletes who were professional athletes turned executives. So
Mm.
that was a long way of kind of, answering your question of why I wrote the first book, is just to kind of bring out this framework that helped me, more so as this kid who didn't really know what to do,
Mm.
all the way through to my professional career. It's like, hey, here's the principles that you can leverage in life, in business, whatever you're trying to do, and you're going to be fine, right? So I wanted to share that with the world while I was transitioning to the U.S.
Tell me about that a little bit. Tell me about some of the commonalities in either the interviews that you had, and obviously in your own lived experience, that folks that are listening here can sort of learn a little bit from. Obviously, they can go read the book and learn a lot more. But think about a couple that stand out the most.
Yeah, when I look back at all of my roles, one of the things that I've done consistently in every role, and this is just like how I've been programmed, I guess, in practice and in football, was investing in the off season.
Mm.
So a coach would always say, championships are not won on the field; they're won in the off season. How hard are you working over that 4 to 6 month period when nobody's watching you, nobody's pushing you, nobody's asking you to hit the gym twice a day sometimes? But the teams that do that consistently and the players that come together to do that consistently, putting in the foundational work, you already know who's going to win the championship before the season even starts. At
Mm.
that point, it's just execution. How well
Mm.
do you execute? The work of executing starts up front.
Mm.
So, in the book, I've got these three stages. It's called the off season, regular season, and the postseason.
Mm.
So postseason, regular season, and the off season is a pro business mindset. And no matter wherever you are in your career, whether you're starting a new role, whether you are in a role and you're scaling a business 50 million, 100 million, or you're taking it public, the off season is very, very important. And what we don't do a ton of in business, because we're always go, 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 is take the step back and build those foundations. We're just always trying to execute, right? So that's one of the big ones that I look back at as this, commonality across all the different places I worked at and all the different roles that I've done, and even the greatest leaders that I've admired over the years. They spend the time doing the hard work when nobody's watching.
Qualify that for me. Off season. I'm a VP at, I don't know, Toast as an example,
Sure,
right? As
sure.
you are, right? What did the off season? What did the, because obviously, unlike football, that's always the season, right? And to your
Yep.
point about working, I wrote down on the business versus in the business kind of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you're always executing when you're in the business, and that's it. So what did the off season look like for you at Toast?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take that example, right? So an executive at, um, let's say, a tech company growing really quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and whether you're in sales or in customer success, it doesn't really matter. So
Yep.
let's say that you are just starting out. We talk about two scenarios here. One is you're starting out a new role, and one is you're already in the role.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're starting out a new role, our tendency is to start getting quick wins as fast as possible, to start building project plans, to start building a big pipeline, to really start and commanding attention in the meetings. What I believe should happen, and what I've done, and it's worked for me, is spend the first 90 days investing all of your time that you've got. That's your biggest asset in your any role is your time. So you have the time. Invest it in three different things. Okay, number one, relationships. Number two is your systems and routines, and number three is learning the business. So take that time, invest it in those three things: relationships, your personal routines, and learn the business. And what that means is, even if you have to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for the first 90 days, it's the most critical part of any role. If you do that well, the next 6 months to year, 2 year, 5 years just becomes so much easier. You build the machine in those 90 days. What a lot of people do is they won't build the relationships, but they want to make a change. So I'll give you an example. A VP of sales wants to change how and what kinds of let's say prospects they're going after. And they would also like the product team to build the different features and say yes to things that the VP of sales feels we need to build, as well as get the finance to approve a discount that we've never done before. If this VP of sales doesn't invest time building relationships with the CFO, the product leaders, the people on the ground, they're going to get a ton of pushback when it comes time to actually do that, right? Versus good leaders, they'll actually spend the time understanding the business. They spend time working with these leaders. Hey, why haven't we done this? What is it that you're trying to get out of this? How can I help you succeed? How can I help understand? Get in the shoes of the CFO. What is this person dealing with? Why are we not discounting? Is it because somebody on the board is scrutinizing the margin, and is that going to hurt us, right? Is it because there's some other pressure of hitting profitability or whatever that is? So spending the time up front and the foundations is just going to allow you to accelerate and get the buy-in you're going to need to win those deals down the road. Right? Just one simple example.
Yeah, that's I love that. That's a great example. Thank you for that. Tell me about habits.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously that in and of itself is a habit that you've adopted, right? In terms of, okay, my habit
Sure.
is over the first 90 days, I'm going to do this, right? What about some of the micro habits? Maybe this is something that you learned from from your own experience, obviously, what people talked about and as you interview them for the books, but habits like that are going to lead to long-term positive outcomes, like the daily habits of
Yeah.
really of the best people that you've worked with and what you've done.
Yeah. Again, right? It's the basics. It's I call it routines and rituals.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I'll start with what I've done and what works for me is always having a great workout in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's most important. Always having time on your own, whether it's in the morning or in the evenings,
Mm-hmm.
where you just kind of sit and think without any distractions. Very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
Taking micro breaks in the day,
Mm-hmm.
just to I would call that more of like self energy management. It is very, very important. The other habit is always whenever you're in a new role, or if you're trying to enter a new market, there's a learning curve. So what I do is I always kind of break down my week and my month and my year into chunks of learning, and I'll assign that in my schedule. Just like in football practice, you got a 20-minute one-on-one session. You got to hit it. It doesn't matter how you're feeling or you're sore or whatever. You
Mm-hmm.
got to do it. So I'll schedule that. Like, okay, I'm going to spend time learning this every single morning, 20 minutes. Every Saturday, I'll spend an hour diving into my week and how I did and what I can get better at. Sundays, I'll spend reflecting on the past week, but also how am I going to change my approach this week? And then, every quarter, I'll adjust that based on the goals for me and the business. So that's another routines where it's like, how do you slot the learnings over time? And if you're consistently doing that, you're going to get better,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that you're doing. So those are two things: is like energy management personally, so that I'm sharp and I also am positive.
Mm-hmm.
And number two is how do you get better at something? Is actually doing the work and learning,
Mm-hmm.
being consistent about it.
Fantastic. Let's talk about Bet on People. Obviously, that's a new book that's coming out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You haven't published it yet, correct? Or
So we are. I mean, today it's the 6th of August. I'm announcing it on, depending on when this podcast releases.
mm-hmm.
We're going to announce it tentatively on the 12th of August, so next week,
Yep.
and it actually launches on the 9th of September. So it'll be able for pre-order, and yeah, it'll launch in September, and we've got a big push behind that right now.
I'll be there. I'll be at the launch party for sure here.
Awesome.
Tell me about the impetus for that. Why did you want to take on another book, and tell us a little bit about what's in that?
Yeah, the writing a book, I forgot how much work it was the first time, especially in the later stages, right?
Yeah.
But there's a few reasons of why I decided to write this book, and this is probably going to be like my second book, probably for a while. I won't do another one because I feel that I've gotten a lot of my thoughts into this, and I want to see and hopefully it makes a difference in the world. But
Mm.
one of the reasons, Jay, is that when I wrote my first book, actually, it's 2022. I met a friend of mine a few months later. We're just having coffee. We had just connected a few years ago, and we're kind of reconnecting. And he's like, "Man, I had this person in my team, a young leader, and he really wanted to grow, and he was asking me all these questions. So I kind of helped him out and put him on this plan, and I've been coaching him. And one of the things that I did for him was give him your book, and he really loved the book, and it made a big difference in his life, right?
Mm.
And I was like, holy crap! I had no idea that the book that I wrote actually, one, this person used it but gave it to somebody else, and the person that actually read it, it made a positive impact in their personal life and their professional life. So
Mm.
that to me was like, okay, I want to say I have goosebumps listening to that story. And I'm like, man, whatever I did, it made a difference. A few years later, another person called me randomly and said, hey, I got your book. One of the board members gave him the book, and I resonate with your concepts, and it's helped me figure out kind of the next wave of decision making in our business. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Mm.
So I kind of got a bunch of these messages over the years where I felt like there are people that actually do want to read my books. It's not just me putting it out there, right? It is making a difference. So maybe I do need to spend more time, in addition to my executive roles, of actually doing the things that I feel people need to hear, not what they want to hear, but they need to hear.
Mm.
Which brings me to my second point. When I um, my last day, so when I was transitioning from my previous role, I had a big cross functional team that I worked with, right? It was more cross functional, and lots of people from different organizations or different departments in the organization,
Mm.
and they sent me this digital card, and they started reading the digital card of like, hey, thanking me for all the time and the contributions. And there's one thing that I read again and again and again. It was not about, Tanvir, thanks for the help on the business, thanks for the growth, thanks for anything about the business at all. It was all, thank you for your leadership, thank you for your mentorship, and thank you for your guidance.
Mm.
I was like, there's a reason why everybody is repeating these three words again and again and again. And then I kind of started reflecting on my time, because after a long time, I had time to think and pause. And one of the things that I felt kind of led to that realization of why is everybody seeing me as this mentor and this leader, is because I was betting on people the entire
Mm.
time.
Mm.
And what I mean with betting on people is really, um, giving people, uh, benefit of the doubt, building trust instead of just asking people to do something, being there for the people. If I commit to something, actually doing it, versus just lip service. Um, things like, if somebody deserves a raise, actually fighting, all the way with HR to give them that raise versus just saying, I tried, sorry.
Mm.
If I'm kind of rebuilding the team, actually rebuild the team for what the business needs versus just what the org chart needs. So
Mm.
actually doing the things that, um, people people actually need and the business needs to succeed,
Mm.
but which are usually really hard to do because it takes a long time, and you don't get liked for those things. You get scrutinized a ton. So
Tell me.
basically, it's a I would say it's a double-edged sword of like, okay, you want to be the great leader, but at the same time, um, it's not practiced widely enough.
So you mentioned the scrutiny. I want to dig into that a little
Yeah.
bit. You're scrutinized from whom? Not the people that you're leading, but from other department heads or
It could be anybody, right? So I have, I mean, when the book comes out, I think there's a few stories in there of other leaders and, people I've interviewed in the book as well. Generally, what happens is, let's say that I I feel that the path we're on is not the right path, right? And you got all these signals in the business. I'll give you an example of let's say there's, in one of my we can look at a different industry altogether. Let's say there's a restaurant business on the brand side, right? And the signals are that the sales are not growing, the customer frequency is lower, the check sizes hasn't grown. So all the different metrics that you are trying to push, uh, you're missing those metrics. And but the business is still growing altogether.
Hmm.
However, I see signals, or the leader sees signals, that if we don't fix this, we are going to get disrupted. Somebody's going to come in with better technology, better mobile interfaces, better loyalty programs, better, just marketing, campaigning in general. And once that happens, they flip the switch, we won't be relevant anymore, right? So let's say you realize that's going to happen. Now, if I go to let's say, the teams, and I go to the board, or the leadership team, and say, hey, we need to make a big change, they're going to say, what's wrong with you? Why would you want to change stuff? It's already working.
Hmm.
But when you actually try to push that message and be that one voice that is the right thing to do, you're going to get a lot of raised eyebrows. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
things are going well. Why are you trying to kind of mess things up? Why are you trying to add more work for us? Which also, if you do that, tends to come with a bunch of change, because the people that were there for that phase of the business most likely can't scale
Hmm.
to the next phase of the business, or they're going to need to really up level
Hmm.
themselves,
Yeah.
and that comes with more change, right? So
Hmm.
that's where you start getting this one example of like this scrutiny is like, hey, nothing's broken, but I'm looking like 2 years from now. And two, if you actually do want to change these things, it comes a lot with personnel changes, or people have to change and adapt. So that's just one part of that. The other thing I'll mention is a lot of people actually nowadays also feel that if somebody, let's say you're a hard worker and you're working really hard, you actually, unfortunately, right, this is a reality we're living in. Uh, some people might be coasting and they're happy with it, but your hard work and your results that you're driving are becoming a threat to somebody else, because now they have to pull their weight.
Right.
So then they'll start playing the politics.
Hmm. Yep.
No, I don't agree with this. Oh no, we need more people to make this decision. Oh wait, I don't think the customers want this. Where's your data? Show me the data, right? Even though we all know the right thing to do is everybody to actually go in that direction, right? So anyways, just a few
Uh,
examples. I'm
yeah.
sure you've
Very
seen a
interesting.
ton in your
Oh yeah.
career as well, and other GTM leaders that you're working with.
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was met with that kind of scrutiny many years ago. It's an uncomfortable situation for
yeah.
sure, right? You mentioned benefit of the doubt.
Hmm.
When somebody listening is, let's say, for instance, a leader, go to market leader, hears benefit of the doubt, they might hear given someone too much rope or leniency when things aren't necessarily going in the right direction, kind of a thing. Tell me more about that. Give me
Yeah,
an example, or
for sure. That's a great question, Jay. So to answer that question, I'm gonna take a step back. I believe there's three stages for a leader before you can give somebody benefit of the doubt. So if I'm the leader, before I can bet on somebody, I have to first bet on myself. I have to fully believe in myself and what I stand for, my values.
Mhm.
Number two, I have to believe in the cause. Do I believe where this ship is going? What the mission we're on? Do I believe where we're headed? Number three, if you get number one and two right, only then can you believe in the people and bet on people, which is
Mhm.
you show up and you make an impact through people. So let's say you've got the first two stages down. Now, what that does, if you get the first two stages down, is I have put in the work up front of building my people, investing in my talent, building trust, getting the right people on the bus, getting the wrong people off the bus. I've made the hard decisions. I've also had the tough conversations. I might not be liked, but I'm respected. So if you do all those things and there's somebody on the team that, let's say, is working their ass off, and just you know need somebody to believe in them, and then this person has the chops to really step up. That's when you give the person benefit of the doubt, and you say, "Listen, I know you got this. I'm here. I'm going to catch you if you fail. Don't worry. Show me what you got," and you become the force behind that person.
Mm.
But you can't do that. A lot of times, people will tell me, "It's like, oh, Tanvir, the way you're talking about it makes sense on paper, but this person that I've on my team, I can't give them any more rope. I can't believe in them because they just don't work hard. They can take advantage of that." My answer to that is that you as a leader have failed because you allowed that culture to cultivate first.
Mm.
That should not be happening at all. You bring the wrong people and you don't set expectations up front.
Mm.
You don't give feedback right away. You don't give feedback weekly. You don't you don't get rid of the people or that there might be the assholes in the business. You let that stuff slide. This is stuff's going to happen, and you can't say that. Oh no, I can't bet on these people because they can take advantage of me. The reality is that you, as a leader, didn't do the right things up front.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. So, going a little bit further with that, one of the things you mentioned regarding bet on people is, and you just talked about earlier, was just being the force behind that person. When you're at that point, how do you unlock that, right? Like, how do you get them or enable them to be their best in something that might not be as clear, right? It might be muddy,
Yeah,
but they're working hard. How do you pull them through that?
for sure. And I always go back to my career. Somebody bet on me like 3 times,
Hmm.
and it was for me it was like the best thing in the world. I call it like I got very lucky, right? All of my roles, somebody bet on me. I don't think I had the right their experiences or the backgrounds, but I think I always ask them, hey, what made you make this decision? And I think what they've said was, hey, you had the potential.
Hmm.
So I always go back to, if you see the potential in somebody, take the chance,
Hmm.
right? That's the number one thing. It's potential over experience, especially now. I interviewed over 50 people for the book,
Hmm.
a lot of executives, Fortune 500 global
Hmm.
startup, found everybody all across the realm
Hmm.
to say, hey, what's happening? Where do you see things going with AI? And everybody agreed that adaptability is the number one skill you need. What that shows me is that experience is no longer going to be as relevant as it was. You need people that are able to adapt, work hard, and have the potential to figure things out. Even more now than, let's say, 10 years ago, right?
Hmm.
Um, so to answer your question, is one, find people that have the potential, and once you do that, you have to build the environment where they can thrive.
Hmm.
And my coach would always say, in football, I would never put you in a position that you haven't been in before. I'll
Hmm.
always make sure that you're ready and you've seen it in the situation before in practice,
Hmm.
so that you can go and make the play in the game when it matters the most.
Hmm.
Similarly, right, as a leader, if you know this person has potential, give them the tools, which means help them build the confidence, help them learn the business. But at the same time, you do need to give this person a shot at trying something that they might not be ready for yet, or which stretches them a little bit,
Hmm.
right? And you have to take a chance. And the other thing that a lot of folks have shared with me in the book, Jay, which is interesting, is nobody remembers the 5 or 10 times you bet on somebody that failed. They remember the 1 or 2 times when you bet on somebody and they succeeded, and personally they found meaning and fulfillment as a leader. You're gonna have losses. You're gonna have wins. Take your shots.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that I always say too, as well. Nobody remembers the misses, but they remember the big wins, right?
Exactly.
Like for instance,
Exactly.
your national championship sticks out more in your mind than a loss
All the
in the
losses.
season. Sometime, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure.
The one thing I'll also say, which I think is important, um, if we have this, there's this part of one of the interviews in the book as well. So when the book comes out, you can read it. Um, there's this, I guess, like notion that we don't want to bet on people nowadays, because where have all the hardworking people gone? Nobody wants. There's this like understanding that nobody works hard anymore. And I've heard a lot of leaders say, the younger generation doesn't pull their weight. These guys want to be, they want to see the money first, and then they'll work hard at it.
Mm.
I disagree with that, and here's why. And there's other leaders in the book as well that feel similarly. I feel that people are always willing to go the extra mile. But what's happened is that this way of leading that I'm talking about is not practiced by the masses.
Mm.
So what I'm trying to say is, let's say that you have this young graduate who wants to work their ass off and is looking to grow. If I don't bet on that person, they're gonna try only so many times and then realize that, hey, it doesn't matter how hard I try, I'm not getting that chance.
Mm.
And then you start getting they get into this habit of, hey, what am I busting myself for if I don't see the reciprocity? So as leaders, we failed this person. Versus what should happen is, if somebody's pulling their weight, we should almost reward them, and we should say, hey, I see you, I see you got potential, and I'm going to actually become the force behind you and take a chance on you and help you grow. And I guarantee you that the same person will say, I know the money's going to come, but I'm going to lead in with work ethic and hard work and humility first. So I believe that there are people today willing to work as hard. It's just that we as leaders, the masses, have not been investing that, because I think, somewhere along the lines, we've started to become risk averse and go with the structure more than taking a chance on somebody.
A couple of things that came to mind when you were talking about that. The word belief came to mind because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like as a leader, the moment that the people that you're leading believe that you believe in them, I think that
Absolutely.
confidence and belief starts to build in them, and then they're willing. Not they were willing, but now that they believe that there is that whatever you want to call it, that reward on the other side, that thing that they're trying to get to, although it's hard, they believe that it can be achieved. And if they believe that it can be achieved, and if they believe that you believe it, they're not going to give up very easily, right? It's one of
Yep.
those things, which I think is belief is a powerful word. The other word that I wrote down is adaptability, because it's interesting that you say, I think it's sort of a generational divide, right? Like where folks of a certain generation, certainly mine, I'm going to be 50 this August, but like where, you come up the hard way, and the words I always use are grit, resiliency, adaptability, and
Mm-hmm.
resourcefulness, right? Like those things are time tested. They'll always be there, right? That word adaptability, it's interesting because people, my age, frankly, and older, maybe have a hard time adapting to the new way of communicating, the new way of working with someone who's a recent college grad.
Yep.
Obviously, we have AI, which you mentioned earlier, in terms of, is it how much of it is sort of taking a shortcut versus, in people can look at I have my best friend who's a, highly educated, graduated from the University of the Booth School of Chicago and all that, and is reluctant to use AI almost because he feels like, well, I work 15 hours a day. Like I gotta find, I write the report. I do this. I don't need AI necessarily to do this because this is what I'm educated for. This is what I can do. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just a different way of thinking. Long way of saying, like, tell me about how you've been able to adapt as things have changed, and how has where do you see AI fitting into go to market teams now, versus whether it's
Yep.
running more efficiently, all of those things.
So first, I'm surprised, man. You don't look 50 at all. So I don't know what you do, but you you maintained yourself well. So keep it up, man.
Those morning workouts you talked about.
That's good. We should work out together
Yeah, yeah.
sometime. So that's yeah. So adaptability. I mean, I think I've been fortunate, and I've been lucky that I've been surrounded by great people who
Hmm.
have pushed me to adapt. So every place that I've worked at, whether it was RBI or Freshie or Toast, or even like through advisory and my own books, I've kind of been forced to either adapt or you'd be left behind. The
Hmm.
uh, the other thing is, I always have this note in my whiteboard here from my football days. Coach would always say that, hey, work like somebody else is trying to take your spot, because somebody always is working to replace you, right? So what does that mean in business is that if you're not adapting, if you're not learning, somebody else will replace you. And in football, it was always, hey, somebody from university is going to come in, bigger, faster, stronger, and take your spot, right? And in the pros especially, that's what happens. 2 year lifespan, right, for most of the defensive linemen, which was what I was.
Mm-hmm.
So same applies in business. It's like, hey, what can you do? What is somebody who just came off, let's say that, who is just like you, but has more, whether it's experience or knowledge, what are they doing today, and what are the risks that you see in your role that somebody could replace you? So, and how could you adapt to make sure that you stay a step ahead of them? So
Mm-hmm.
almost kind of being paranoid, but in a good way,
Mm-hmm.
which is what pushes you forward. So, anyways, that's a big one.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. You mentioned adaptability. What are some of the other traits that you look for in team members that where you will, say that okay, this person is the right person to have on the bus, and I am going to invest in this person because everybody has to have start with a baseline, right? You talk about
Yeah.
the ceiling, like what's their potential, kind of a thing, right? What are some of the things that you look for as it pertains to potential?
Man, there isn't like a checklist that I've got, but there's a few things. One of them is hard work and work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's very important because if you think about, this is just AI. I think if you're hardworking, you're gonna leverage AI. This is my final chapter in the book. Is how do you leverage AI superpower?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna figure things out. You're gonna use AI to make yourself that much better.
Mm-hmm.
Versus somebody who just doesn't have that work ethic or that drive. So you're gonna find tools to make yourself better. So work ethic. The second thing is hunger,
Mm-hmm.
right? I always scare people whenever I hire them. I say, listen, this is not a 9 to 5. If you just want to coast, this is not for you. This is going to be fast. It's going to be tough. We're going to change the direction a ton. And the people that say, no, I still want to be here, right? I know that these guys are the ones on the bus, right? And I think the attitude is more important than experience or anything. And then finally is humility, because even back in my career, I've made so many mistakes across all of my roles, and it just teaches you, like, you don't know anything. Everything is changing, and you should be the first one to admit I don't know, or I made a mistake. And having that humility is going to allow you to actually like gather yourself and move faster and continue on moving forward. So I think, again, hard work, humility, and hunger are very important.
Yeah.
And obviously, just the horsepower and the drive.
Yeah, the work ethic, no
Yeah.
doubt. Yeah, I think that word humility too. Also, the sort of sister or sibling, let's just call it to that, is empathy, right? Because when you have that
Hmm.
been humbled through your own sort of mistakes and experiences, and now you see someone else behind,
Yeah.
steps behind you making similar mistakes. It's that empathy, where you can see it in them and motivate them to move forward, right? And
Yeah.
show them that you believe in them, for sure, no doubt. Um, what else did I want to say about that? What about as you start to look forward in your own career, right? Obviously, speaking
Mhm.
of age, you're still early on, still really young. You're writing this book. This book will be out, as this will be published in the next week or so, say in a few weeks, for people who will listen to this, certainly in September. Um, what's next? Like, what do you have uh, that you want to accomplish,
Yeah.
for your next role? And yeah, just tell me a little bit about that.
It's a great question, and something I'm trying to figure out as we speak, right? I've been, again, I think it's just, I've been super fortunate with the people that I've been surrounded with. I've always felt that I've been able to go slower to go faster. So when I wrote my first, actually even before that, I actually took an extra year in my fifth year of university to go back into football again. And that one year actually allowed me to take some time after I graduated. I had lost 80 pounds in 6 months. and
Wow.
I went on. I was an nose tackle. I was 295 when I played.
Yep.
So I almost feel like, those 8 months or so before I went to my MBA kind of helped me springboard into the career that I wanted to build. And then again, after a few years after that, I came to the U.S. I took a year and a half off where I wrote the book, and that really allowed, it forced me to learn, meet people, do some really deep research and reflection to say, hey, where do I want to spend the time? Which led me, to Boston and Toast. And I almost feel like this year, we had our first baby last year. He just turned 15 months. And my wife is working, and I felt that I've been sprinting, new city, new home, this job, baby, the book, and everything else before that is like, this is a great time for me to kind of hunker down, support the family, spend time at home, write this book, and through this book is meet great people, learn about where the world is going macro level, kind of refocus on the health again, and get ready for the next 10 years.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
as we're doing this podcast today, so I'm kind of in this place where it's like, hey, book's going to come out, super excited, and I've had this time to reflect. What